She was holding a mop when the CEO smirked. "Ma'am, this boardroom is for executives." Ruth Carter didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her eyes glanced up straight at the wall where her name was still engraved on a brass plaque, a forgotten remnant from years before. The men in that polished glass room didn't know her. To them, she was just a janitor with tired hands and quiet eyes. But the truth? Ruth was holding more power in that moment than any of them realized. Power doesn't always come wrapped in money, prestige, or sharp suits. Sometimes it shows up in the form of quiet dignity. Sometimes it's hidden inside the woman carrying a mop. Ruth had been invisible for years, the kind of person you walk past without thinking twice. But that day, standing in the very room where decisions worth millions were being made, she was about to change everything, because Ruth Carter wasn't just cleaning floors. She was cleaning up something far bigger, something the board had no idea was about to come crashing down. But before we talk about the night, she dropped a napkin covered in numbers that shook the company to its core. We need to rewind. Who was Ruth? How did a top honors graduate, once filled with fire and ambition, end up scrubbing floors in a building that should have been hers? This isn't just another corporate scandal story. It's about resilience, about betrayal, about the way the world underestimates women who refuse to give up, and most importantly, it's about redemption. So let's go back. Back before the mop. Back before the heartbreak. Back to the moment everything started to unravel. Welcome, story lovers. From where are you watching? Drop your city name in the comments so we can see how far this story travels. Ruth Carter wasn't always a cleaner. Once upon a time, she was destined to be something entirely different. Born in a small Ohio town, Ruth grew up in a modest home with peeling wallpaper, a mother who worked double shifts as a nurse, and a father who fixed cars in their driveway until his back gave out. Money was always short, but laughter was abundant. Her parents instilled one thing in her: education is your ticket out, and Ruth believed them. She excelled in school, particularly in math. Numbers weren't just numbers to her, they were puzzles, stories waiting to be solved. Teachers marveled at her ability to spot inconsistencies in financial ledgers, even as a teenager. By the time she entered college, Ruth was on track to become a forensic accountant. She dreamed of working for the FBI, the IRS, some place where she could untangle fraud and expose corruption. She wanted to make a difference, not just a paycheck. She graduated top of her class with recruiters chasing her. But life doesn't always honor our perfect plans. First came love. A whirlwind romance with a man named Michael. He was charming, ambitious, and seemed supportive of her dreams. They married quickly, and within 2 years, Ruth gave birth to their son, Jacob. Then came the bills. Medical ones. Jacob was born with a heart condition, and though he was strong, his first years were filled with hospital visits, surgeries, and endless expenses. Ruth tried to keep working, balancing her accounting job with caring for Jacob. But when Michael lost his job and started disappearing at night, the pressure became unbearable. One night, after another argument about money, Michael walked out. He didn't come back. His final words still echoed in her ears: "I didn't sign up for this." So Ruth did what women like her have always done. She put her dreams on the shelf and did whatever it took to keep her child alive. She cleaned houses, stocked shelves at a grocery store. Eventually, she landed a janitorial position at a corporate building, not just any building, but ironically, the headquarters of one of the very firms she once dreamed of auditing. Her degree. It hung on her wall, collecting dust beside expired food stamps. Still, she never let her mind go dull. Every night, after Jacob finally fell asleep, Ruth would pull out her old laptop, open Excel spreadsheets, and practice. Not because anyone was watching, but because it reminded her she was still her. But make no mistake, it wasn't easy. She learned how to stretch $20 across a week, how to swallow pride when neighbors whispered, how to stay silent when executives passed. Her in the hall without so much as a glance, invisible. That's how Ruth lived. Until one night changed everything. It started like any other night. Ruth was scrubbing conference room B, the one with the giant mahogany table where the board of directors met every quarter. Most nights the room was spotless, but on this particular evening, someone had been careless. The laptop had been left open, its glow casting a pale light across the polished table. Normally, Ruth would have ignored it. She wasn't nosy. But one line on the screen caught her eye. Cue for audit notes. Adjust totals to match narrative. Her stomach dropped. That wasn't normal. She hesitated. She knew better than to get involved. But numbers were her language. And something about those notes pulled her in like gravity. She glanced around empty halls, silent offices. Heart racing. Ruth leaned closer and scanned the screen. Numbers, charts, graphs. And then it hit her. Nothing added up. She snapped a quick photo with her old phone, shut the laptop, and walked out as if nothing had happened. But that night, Ruth didn't sleep. She stayed up running calculations, cross-checking figures with publicly available reports. What she found made her blood run cold. A $4.2 million discrepancy. Fraud, plain and simple. For years. Ruth had stayed silent. She swallowed insults, endured invisibility, and played the part of just a cleaner. But this wasn't just about her anymore. This was about justice. Yet it wasn't simple. Speaking up meant risk. What if no one believed her? If she lost her job, worse. What if someone retaliated? Still, Ruth had lived her entire life doing the safe thing. Look where it got her. So she made a plan. She documented everything. Photographed every spreadsheet, scribbled notes on napkins, and drafted an anonymous email to the IRS. But she didn't stop there. Ruth knew corporate wolves didn't fall easily. They had money, lawyers, and power. She had one weapon, truth, and she was ready to use it. The boardroom was full that morning. Executives in tailored suits, coffee cups steaming, laughter bouncing off glass walls. Ruth entered quietly, mop in hand. The CFO spotted her. "Excuse me, this is a closed meeting." Ruth didn't flinch. "You might want to open it." Confused chuckles filled the room. She walked forward and placed a folded napkin on the table. Numbers covered every inch of it, written in blue pen. "This," she said softly, "is your missing $4.2 million? Silence. "And just so you know," she added, "copies are already with the IRS, the SEC, and Channel 7. The CEO's face drained of color. The CFO's jaw locked. For a moment the room was frozen in disbelief. And then Ruth turned, without waiting for permission, applause, or acknowledgement. She walked out. That was the day the janitor became the most powerful person in the room. Dear audience, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to give it a like. It really helps. The fallout was swift. Investigations launched. Executives resigned. Headlines blared about fraud and betrayal at one of the city's most respected firms. And in the middle of it all, Ruth Carter. The company offered her a high-paying job in compliance, hoping to keep her close. But Ruth declined. She hadn't fought her way through years of invisibility, just to work under the same roof that had once overlooked her. Instead, she used her whistleblower settlement to launch something new. A forensic consulting firm dedicated to exposing financial fraud. At first, no one took her seriously. She was just a janitor. But slowly, as word spread, Fortune 500 companies began calling. Not because Ruth had a shiny resume, but because she had something rarer: grit, honesty, and a track record of seeing what others ignored. Her son Jacob, once sick and fragile, was now thriving, a top student with dreams of his own. He often told his classmates proudly, "My mom's a fraud buster." Ruth didn't live lavishly. No mansions, no sports cars. She found joy in mentorship, training young women from low-income backgrounds in accounting, giving them the opportunities she once lost. And though she never sought fame, recognition came. awards, magazine features, community honors. But to Ruth, the greatest victory wasn't public, it was private. Walking into any room, knowing she was no longer invisible. She was undeniable. They once called her just a cleaner. But the truth? Ruth had been cleaning up messes long before anyone noticed. Financial ones, emotional ones, broken dreams no one cared to see. She didn't need applause, she didn't crave wealth, she wanted peace. And now she had it. But here's the twist most people don't know. Years later, the very FBI she once dreamed of joining contacted her not as an applicant, but as a consultant. Ruth Carter, the janitor no one looked at twice, was now helping federal agents crack fraud cases nationwide. And maybe that's the real lesson. Power doesn't always look like power. Sometimes it's a tired woman with a mop, holding on to dreams no one else can see. So the next time you pass by someone invisible, someone society writes off, remember Ruth. The mop doesn't define them. Their dreams do. Because sometimes the quietest woman in the room is the one who saves it. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories and new videos.